to talk about season 3, the final chapter of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. I covered episode 1 and episode 2 in my first video, so now I want to cover episode 3 and episode 4. I really wish they would have spaced the episodes out more instead of just like releasing them all at once, but it is what it is. And I did have one of the people that was in this documentary in the comments in my last video, and he actually has a YouTube channel. It was the dude that was in the blue shirt, as we see in the bottom right hand corner, and he did the interview on the documentary talking about how Cynthia used to babysit his son, and he was having issues at the time. I think like he was a single father just struggling, and Cynthia was like, let me adopt your son, and she even wrote the paperwork up and was ready to get it notarized, but he said he just had an odd feeling about it and he backed out. He said Cynthia would babysit his son and have him in timeout in the corner and wouldn't allow him to use the bathroom, so he would urinate on himself. And if there's more about Cynthia and Antoine that hasn't been shared on that documentary that he knows, then hit me up, because I would love to hear more about Cynthia and Antoine behind the scenes. But now let's get into this last 2 episodes. So Natalia really had me guessing her intentions in the first 2 episodes, because she went over to the DePaul's family's house and she acts like she hates her family so much. Then she gets there and does a total 180, and here she is. She still has the man's family getting her money and in control of her finances. And the big question I have is, since she started filming this documentary when she was still living with the man's family, and when she first moved out, she said the man's family could control her finances. Is the man's family gonna get her whole check from this documentary? Because you know they're ripping her a fat check. Who's getting that? That's what I want to know. I feel like that's the only reason why the mans want to keep Natalia in their good graces, is because they're trying to get her whole check. And that's why they don't want her to have any access to the internet or the outside world, like any boys or any friends, because they don't want anybody to talk any rational thoughts into her, like, hey, this is not right. Natalia has been brainwashed for so long that what she's been going through with the man's family is completely normal, that she just doesn't know any better. And I think honestly, like when she got paid this $300,000 for the Dr. Phil show, I think she hasn't really worked besides that, besides doing like TV appearances and doing TV. So I don't think she really even understands like how much a normal paycheck is for someone, and like how $300,000 is a lot of money. Like I bet Natalia's family's lying to her and saying, oh, we just spent all that on this trailer, and we know you did not just spend $300,000 on no freaking trailer. Also, just a random thought. If any of my viewers who are watching this watch Love After Lockup and know Maurice's girlfriend Mandy, that's who Cynthia reminds me of. From her face to the way that she talks and the way that she acts, I just see Mandy every single time I see Cynthia. And they ended up talking to Natalia. Natalia is still in denial, and Nicole's trying to talk some sense into her, but Natalia doesn't want to hear it. And Nicole was like, hey, you at least got to get some therapy if you're going to live in my house. And Natalia was refusing it. She's like, I don't want to put all my problems onto a therapist. But that's really not what you're doing. You're really taking the problems off your shoulders and getting advice from another person. And I really think that's what Natalia needs, especially when you're somebody like Natalia who's grown up with being brainwashed all their lives and like almost growing up in a cult-like environment. People who grow up like that, it takes years to deprogram them, and a lot of times it takes some really serious counseling, and that's exactly what Natalia needs. But I think again, the man's probably have her brainwashed that counseling's no good, it's just going to be a waste of time, when in reality it's going to be the complete opposite. Like, don't knock it until you try it. I was really hoping, like, the people in the documentary film crew were going to push Natalia to do, like, a counseling session, and we'd be able to see her finally sit down with a therapist for the first time and really see that it's not what she was thinking it was going to be. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. You know, Natalia's a grown adult. They can't really force her to do anything at the end of the day. And I really didn't have too high of hopes, even though that would have been good TV. Just because she's not willing to be as vulnerable to the camera crew anymore, so I doubt she'd be willing to be with a therapist in front of a camera crew like that. And then all of a sudden, Natalia does a complete 180 because Nicole was just trying to get on to Natalia all the time because Natalia was in denial. Natalia was saying, oh, they love me, they're not using me, they're not in it for the money. And Nicole was like, well, what about your taxes? Who's paying your taxes? And I don't think Natalia has ever sat down and thought about taxes, and I don't feel like she was fully educated on the tax system and knew that if you're self-employed, in most states you got to put at least a fourth of what you make aside and pay back at the end of the year, and Natalia hasn't done any of that. And when Nicole asked her, well, who's going to pay that? Natalia's like, don't worry, Antoine and Cynthia will. And Nicole was like, I highly doubt that. And Natalia just started to become annoyed with Nicole because I think she thought she was going to come over to the DePaul's house and it was just going to be like a chill house. Like she would be able to come over, and I think she kind of thought it was going to be like more of like a roommate situation where she could just go over there, talk to her boyfriend Neil on the phone all day, chill in her room, come out when she wants a drink or has to use the bathroom, and that's it. But then she's realizing that Nicole has expectations. She wants Natalia to go to counseling. She wants Natalia to work on her life. She wants Natalia to get these taxes figured out. And Natalia, she seems like the type of person that she doesn't want to address her problems. She would just rather be quiet, look the other way, pretend they're not happening. But the problem is, she's been doing that long enough that she's only digging herself a deeper hole. And the man hasn't done anything to help that. And thank God for Nicole, they'll come in and shake things up and be like, no, we need to figure this out now. Because the longer she goes not paying those taxes, the more higher fees and interest she's gonna pay on all that, and she could even go to jail for that. Nicole is just trying to educate Natalia and let her know what the truth is. And Natalia called the man's family, and she thought they were going to step up and pay it all. And they just pretty much act like they didn't know what she was talking about. And they're like, nope, we're not going to be paying all that. And even after the fact that they admitted it to Natalia, they were not going to pay a dime, Natalia was still in denial and still talking to them as if they didn't say that and keeping a close relationship with them. And Nicole just could not understand whatsoever. She's feeling like she's being used and taken advantage of. And then all of a sudden, she confronts Natalia. And she's like, Natalia, these people do not love you. If they loved you, they would have paid the taxes. And she's like, we have to figure this out now. You need to come out of your room. And I guess it finally became too much for Natalia to bear, because suddenly she called Cynthia and Antoine, and Cynthia and Antoine were able to talk her into going to get a hotel room, and they said they would Uber her to a hotel so she could leave and come back home with them. And I was like, oh my God. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, man, I'm starting to think what I was suspecting in my last video, that maybe Natalia just strung along the DePaul family just to have like an exciting storyline for them to do another season. Maybe she's just doing this strictly for the check and the storyline. Natalia was in complete denial. The man's family was just feeding her what she wanted to hear, promising her that, oh, when you come back, you can have all this freedom, you can have your cell phone, you can talk to your boyfriend and see him whenever you want. And I already knew that this was a crock of shit. I knew that as soon as she went back home, they were going to take everything from her and be probably 10 times worse without somebody right by her side making sure she doesn't run away, because, you know, she's their cash cow and the man's family need Natalia. And Natalia said she was going to move out and Nicole was devastated. And she went to her room for hours. So Nicole's starting to think like she's packing her bags, she's getting ready to leave. And then suddenly they heard Natalia arguing on the phone with her boyfriend. And her boyfriend was like, how could you be so effing stupid to be willing to go back to where you just came from, and said it was so freaking terrible. And you know they're not going to let us talk. And I think he talked some sense into Natalia, because after that she ended up coming out of her room with a big smile on her face. And she said, actually, I'm going to stay. And then after then, with some time, she slowly started to change the way she viewed the Mans family. She started to open her eyes and realize that they were just using her strictly for the money, because if there was no monetary gain for them, then they didn't want anything to do with Natalia. Her deciding to stay, I think, was one of the best decisions she has ever made in her life. And I feel like a lot of it too is with her being at the DePaul's family's house. She was seeing how great everything was going. I think she forgot how bad it really was at the Mans family's house. So Natalia decides to stay. But despite the fact she finds out that she's going to get a big fat tax bill coming her way, and the Mans family really don't give a damn about her, she still didn't really have anything bad to say about them. The interviewers kept asking her, are you sure they've never laid hands on you? And she's like, look, I got popped in the butt, but that's it. And she was still protecting them despite how big of scumbags they had been to her. Then one day, Nicole was walking down her hallway and she heard moaning, and she thought it was her husband like downstairs watching porn. So she was gonna like beat on the ground to mess around with him, like, hey, you're being a little too loud. But instead she realized it was coming from the bathroom, and she heard Natalia in the bathroom moaning, having phone sex with her little UK boyfriend. And she said that she knew for a fact that the Mans family had access to all of Natalia's old messages and text messages between her and her boyfriend Neil. And she kind of had a light bulb go off in her head once she found out about all this, because she's like, you know what? I'm starting to think the real reason that Natalia won't say anything about the Mans family is because they have blackmail on her. She's scared that if she says something bad about them, then they're going to expose all her naughty text messages that she had with Neil and some of her nudes and God knows what else. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Mans family had Natalia sign like some sort of NDA where she agreed she wouldn't say anything bad about them, just as another layer to try to manipulate her into only saying good things about them. Like, you know, they had to sit down and have a long talk, really telling her, you know, you better not say anything. Because you can tell Natalia is very carefully choosing her words, and a lot of what she's saying is very rehearsed, and she is making sure she does not say nothing bad about the Mans family or anything that could be misconstrued as bad. And so after she decides to stay home, everything is still kind of stressful in the air, because it's been nonstop drama between Nicole and Cynthia and Antoine. They've been fighting on the phone every single day because Nicole wants answers from Cynthia, because Natalia, she may have asked Cynthia about questions like about her taxes, but besides that, Natalia really has been willing to push Cynthia like she needs to be pushed and called out. I feel like people are brought into our lives that we need, and I feel like that's exactly why Nicole was brought into Natalia's life. Nicole's the exact opposite of Natalia. Natalia is quiet, she doesn't like confrontation, and Nicole is everything that helps balance Natalia out, and she needs somebody like Nicole in her corner fighting for her. Like, I don't think Natalia would have been as successful as she is if she went to anybody else's house, because I don't think they would have been fully equipped to deal with everything that comes along with confronting Cynthia and all this drama. Most people would have thrown in the towel day one. And after Natalia decided to come back, or decided to stay, she was able to make a trip to go see her boyfriend in the UK. So she got all dolled up, she got her hair cut, she got her ears pierced, she got to wear makeup for the first time and wear cute clothes. And she went to the UK, and it looks like she traveled by herself, which I was shocked because I didn't realize like she was that independent to actually like get around like on the plane and stuff like that by herself. I know there's people at the airport that are hired to help people like that, but I don't know, maybe I'm just underestimating how much Natalia can really do for herself. And she travels, she comes back, and after she came back, she was just so freaking happy for weeks. And to this day, she's still with Neil and says that she wants to eventually start a family one day. She ended up getting flown out with the DePaul family to New York City to see the big city for the first time and do a big interview and photo shoot with People magazine. And she just seems to be doing amazing and thriving since she left the man's family. And hopefully she's keeping all her money. I don't remember her saying an update though on Cynthia being her payee. Did they ever change that? Like last I knew, she said Cynthia was still her payee, and I don't remember an update after that. Like I think at one point she was talking about taking Cynthia off, but I don't think they updated us on that after that. So I'm really curious on the status of that. Oh, I forgot to mention the worst part when Natalia called Cynthia and said, look, if you don't help me with these taxes, then I'm going to have to pay all these taxes back and I could be going to jail. And Cynthia, she had the audacity to say, well, maybe this is the Lord's sign for you to move to the UK. Like, are you kidding me? That just tells me that you have like a scammer mindset and you've already thought about this before. Like, now I'm doubting everything the man's family does. Like, are you really religious, or are you just hiding behind religion as a way to deflect from all the bad things you do? Because the thing is, if you were really as religious and as big into the Bible as you claim you are, then why are you preaching things like don't drink or don't do this and that or don't cuss, but you're turning around and doing all those things? That is so hypocritical, especially when you're supposed to be the person leading by example. It just really makes me question his true motives on why he really is a bishop. He gives me off the type of dude that will tell his followers at his church, yeah, I know that's your last $500, but God said you need to send it to us and he'll have it come back to you tenfold. It just reminds me of like the televangelists, like the dudes you usually see on in the middle of the night on those church commercials that preach the prosperity gospel that suggests that God rewards people who donate with wealth and health and give me all your money and God's gonna answer all of your prayers. But it just kind of exploits vulnerable individuals, especially like the elderly, disabled, and financially insecure. And I feel like that's kind of what they probably do, because Natalia, she needed surgery desperately, but instead they're like, oh no, we're just gonna pray the pain away. We're gonna pray so she doesn't become paralyzed from not getting surgery. And Natalia didn't know until she left their house and saw how the deposits were as a result of their surgery. She didn't know the possibilities that you can really have from surgery and all the benefits that you can get from it, because she was just so brainwashed. And I'm sure that's what they're telling all their church followers. You don't need to go to the doctor, just pay us and we'll bless you. I would love to hear from like former church members that no longer go to that church. I bet they have some hot tea. But that's pretty much it, guys. At first, like, I was like, at the beginning, like in season 1, I definitely thought Natalia was a psychopath. And I do think that she is a little bit manipulative. But I mean, she definitely learned from the best. She learned from Cynthia and Antoine. And after being around someone for so long, it's only a matter of time before you start acting like that. I just really wish she would have gave her real thoughts without holding back so much and covering for the man's family. And I wonder if she was to still do the documentary today, if she would still have spoken about the man's family the same way that she did back then. you can't blame Natalia for some of the way she acts because she's just been through so freaking much. Like, just imagine if she just would have grew up in the DePaul family all her life. I feel like she would have a lot less trauma. She would be able to feel more open about her emotions. And I don't know. I'm just glad she's away from there now. I wish her the best. Much success. This was a long road with a lot of twists and turns. And I do wish she was fully vulnerable, but I guess we'll wait and see. They acted like this was going to be the last documentary, but I definitely feel like this isn't going to be the last time we hear from Natalia. But let me know what you guys think about everything in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you guys know of any other good documentaries you want to see me cover, let me know in the comments below. I guess they have a whole Curious Case series coming out. They did an episode on Bam Margera, and I did watch that and I was thinking about covering it, but I guess I'll just have to see how the week goes. If you guys want to see me cover it, let me know, or anything else you want to see. And thank you guys so much for watching.